Hi, I'm Sarah Colón-Harris, and I'm the executive producer here at PBS Charlotte.
I am Richard Washington III. I am the news director at Fox 61 CW20 in Hartford, Connecticut.
Hey everybody, my name's Cody Love. I'm a director at WCNC Charlotte.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Hardy. I'm a video editor at WSOCTV.
My name is Melissa Martin, and I am manager of coverage and content at WSOCTV. I manage our content center team. I started here more than 10 years ago as an assignment editor.
Hey there, everyone. I'm meteorologist Chris Mulcahy. I'm with WCNC Charlotte, and I'm pumped about this interview.
Hi, good morning. I'm Carl McLean. I am a TV news photographer at WSOCTV, also engineer on a satellite truck.
So as an executive producer, I'm in charge of leading the production team. So we have a team of about 10 journalists, including reporters and videographers. And so my job is to make sure that the train is always on the tracks for the most part. So I'm in charge of reviewing scripts, assigning stories, putting the stories in the show, writing the show, making sure that everything is organized, that it's facts, that the facts have been checked, that there's the spelling and grammar is correct. So I'm really overseeing all of the content that's coming in and out to make sure that everything is accurate and correct.
As the news director here, I'm in charge of the editorial direction of the station, in charge of hiring, coaching, training, and kind of setting the tone for what we stand for. What are our pillars? What are we going to stand for in the market? And what are our values and our mission? And making sure that we are executing that relentlessly at all times.
Hey, here at WCNC, it's kind of an automated system. As a director, that's kind of been the technological advances these days. So in the traditional sense of news broadcasting, when you have the production side of things, you've got a director, you've got an audio operator, a graphics operator, camera operators, and they all kind of work together as a team to get the show on the air. Director kind of in charge of video and switching between that, kind of running the whole team. The audio operator makes sure that the sound is where you need it. Graphics operator is pulling up the supers, lower thirds, full screens when they're supposed to be up. Camera operators making sure you get shots of the talent in studio. But as an automated system now, I'm working with a computer system called Sony ELC that really makes all of that my responsibility. So I'm really performing 4 roles at once. And that kind of changes a little bit how you direct. It's not a lot more goes into how you prepare before the show, as opposed to actually doing the show live. I mean, there's a lot of a live element, but it's very important that you work with ELC and you put codes in based off of what the producer wants. Say there's a camera shot that they want, and then you go to a video. It's just a VO read with a tight shot. You'll have to put in a code that has the camera shot and the right mics tracked, and then you've got to take the video as well, make sure there's a code in there for that, and then you've got to take the super at the right time when you're on air. So a lot of it is looking at ENPS. Maybe you use iNews, or what we use ENPS at WCNC. You're following along with what the producer wants, and you're coding it to execute it from a production standpoint.
Well, as an editor, usually I do a lot with video. So the photographers will go out and usually shoot video, and they'll send it into the newsroom. And the producers will usually write the daily stories. And so my job is to visually tell the story the best way I can to kind of help the viewer understand the story better.
I do a lot of content seeking. So they are the people that are gathering news as news comes in throughout the day. And there are several sources for that. They can be viewer tips. It can be police scanners. It can be press releases. It can be social media. They're gathering that and then figuring out how we cover it. So if they hear about something that's breaking news, they need to know where are all of our crews, and know the logistics of where people are, how we can get there the quickest, and how it kind of interacts with the rest of the stories that we're working on that day, to determine who we send and how to cover it. And or sometimes they're confirming information from police agencies or, CMS, like a school district or something along those lines.
All right, so my responsibilities as a meteorologist, it has expanded. I feel like every year it's expanding more to the digital side of things, just the way things are changing. So on a typical weather shift, I'm going to be updating our website for maybe the video or different any scripts. We'll be checking the tropics this time of year, but we build all our own graphics. We do all of our own forecasts. So it's not just us looking at the phones. However, they are getting wildly accurate. So yeah, we'll be making our forecast, just dissecting all that, preparing all the graphics, and then we'll be doing our set shows. So I'm the noon meteorologist, but then sometimes we also wear different hats. So I'm also the traffic anchor in the morning. So I took over for Ruby Durham. Big shoes, great shoes to fill. But yeah, there's a lot of different things. And I also am a reporter as well. So once a week, I'll put together a weather piece that we call Weather IQ, try to make us more weather wise.
Okay.
So as a news photographer, my main responsibility is to be a storyteller. And what I mean by that is I am the person in between the scene and the audience who goes out and captures whatever it is that's happening, that's newsworthy.
Mhm. A typical day will vary. Usually I come in and the first thing I do is I read through the local newspapers just to see what the stories are and read the headlines, and then I'll typically follow up on some emails. We have a weekly editorial meeting where we sit down with all of the reporters and photographers and we talk about what's coming up, what stories they need to be working on, what they have to be doing for the week. I'll coordinate phone calls and schedule shoots. I also on occasion report. I have a reporting background. I did that for 10 years before I moved into the executive producer role. So sometimes I'll go out and report on occasion too.
Oh, my day starts around 5:30 or 6, and the first thing I do is check my email and turn on the news, and I'm consuming the news all the way up until I get to the station, and then on the TV, listen to it in the shower, watching on YouTube TV in the way in. I usually start my day with kind of filling out my calendar with appointments, like usually a lot of meetings throughout the day. The set things that we have every day is a 9:15 a.m. editorial meeting, where we kind of set what the reporters are going to do for our dayside shows. And then it's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of training, it's a lot of coaching, it's a lot of one-on-ones and just a lot of editorial stuff. In between, we have another editorial meeting at 3 p.m. And then, I get out of here at anywhere from 7 to 8 some days. It just depends on what the day brings, but a lot of it is kind of focusing on the day-to-day, and a lot of it is focusing on the big picture. So at the time of this interview, we're preparing for an election, we're preparing for the start of sweeps, we prepare for a bunch of different things, closings, because winter is on the way and need to know how to run that system before the next snowstorm, and all types of things in between. And a lot of my day is spent recruiting and hiring and trying to find new employees to bring in here that are kind of aligned with my vision.
Get in around 3:30 in the morning, because our first newscast is at 4:30. That's the one I normally direct on my days when I'm there out of the morning shows. So I'll come in and I'll get set up. With the current COVID situation, I go right in and I wipe down the area where I'm going to be directing. So you want to try and keep that sanitized. That takes probably 5 minutes. Actually, before I come in, I like to check the email from our executive producer that tells us who's there today, because, I like to be able to know what mics and such I need to get ready. So that's the next thing I do. Usually we have 5 people in the mornings in the studio. We've got 2 anchors, weather, traffic, social. So I'll get those ready. I'll check if we have anybody missing, so I don't need to get all of the mics ready. So the microphones are ready to go. The IFBs need batteries. You just need to make sure they've all got the right battery. I take those out to the studio and distribute them. I turn on all the set lighting. I turn on all the monitors. make sure that those are all working properly before I leave the room. We sometimes have one or two, we always have one weather taping before the morning show. So I handle that. Sometimes we have a few more tapings if they want to do some more stories. And then I start coding the 4:30 a.m. That show doesn't take me very long to code. So I just sit there and I get ready. And then before the show starts, since it's the first show, I try to get everybody's mic check, make sure they sound good. And we go through the show. And that just gets back into what I was talking about earlier. After the show, I try to be close by during the 5 and 6 in case something comes up, because I can help out. Say somebody's mic's not working, I can go and help. We have engineers that do that as well, but sometimes they're preoccupied with other things. So we've got to be able to help out on the technology side. I'm not able to literally fix things, but there's a lot of there's a lot of things that you pick up as a director that you know there are a lot of problems that'll happen, and you know what it is because it's happened enough, so you can help out. And then after that, we're an NBC station, so we have Today Show cut-ins starting around 7, so I handle those. Those are roughly every 30 minutes. We also have a bunch of tapings in the morning to do. There are a lot of interviews that go on. Most of those are actually by Zoom these days. Our lifestyle show also uses our outdoor patio, so we have guests coming in, and they tape those with the guests outside since they can't come inside right now. So we're handling a lot of tapings between the directors in the building. We kind of divide those up based on who's doing what, and sometimes there are other things to do, just your general work-related things. I mean, it is a job just like any other when you're working in news. Like yesterday, I was working on my open enrollment for health insurance, and I thought I made a math error with my vacation days, so I spent a good 30 minutes working on that. It all ended up being fine, fortunately. That just gives you an idea. It's a normal job type of thing. There's those sort of things come into it too. So sometimes we have meetings with our general manager likes to have full station meetings on Zoom once a month. So I'll go to those. We have other meetings. Sometimes the morning team meets, things like that. We had training on a few new technologies we're using this week. That's another thing we met on. So that all takes me to probably around 10 or 10:30. At that point, I'm the director of our midday news show normally when I'm there. So that's when I kind of start pivoting over to that. I'll go out to the studio, I'll check batteries, change those, goes on too. So that's why I like to leave that time available, because it can, the top of the show can change quite a bit right before the show. So once that's done, I get into the chair by 11:30. We're get that show started. We get through that, and then at the end of the day, I go and I collect the mics and IFBs. I turn down the lights. I go ahead and leave the monitors on because they have afternoon tapings that they like to do a lot, so it doesn't really make sense to shut them off. But I bring the microphones back and the IFBs, get them all charging with their batteries so that they're ready to go for the evening show, and then typically I just head out for the day at that point.
I'm into the newsroom, and from there it kind of starts with the producers. We have like a pitch meeting. So the producers and the reporters will get together, and the reporters will, pitch their story ideas. The producers will go over the big stories that we know are going on in the community and nationally and decide what we're going to cover, what has news value. After that, the producers will then take over and they'll write the stories. After they write it, that's where I come in. So then, like I said, after they write it, the photographers, if it's something local, will go out and shoot video. If it's national, then we're an ABC affiliate, so we'll get national video from ABC or CNN. And so that video will come into us, and we'll usually go through raw video. And like I said, once they write it, we'll cut it. Like both SOTs, like voiceovers and SOTs. So when the anchors are on set and they're reading, they're telling, like, let's say there's a crash exam, but an accident or something that happened locally, the photographer shot it. So when the anchor starts describing the scene, that's where I come in, cutting the video to the script so that it matches. And then we'll have the sound on tape. If there was like a witness that said something, we'll, have the sound come up with them. and then have trailing video or packages, you know, when an anchor will have like a little voice track where there'll be like video and little sound shots. I'm using all these technical, I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Try not to, but yeah, so I do a lot of those.
So we have several shifts, and the first, we're only on, like, there's not an assignment editor who comes in like straight overnight. So when the last person gets off at 11:30 p.m., the next person comes in at 3:30 a.m.
Okay.
And what he's doing is he starts bringing over, we have a day planner, and it's part of our software that we have like a file for each day. So for today being September 23rd, the first thing he'll do is he'll bring all the information we have for September 23rd into a file where everybody else can see it. And so the information that would be in that file would be any events that are happening today, any court dates, what our staffing is like, who is working, and what stories we already have going for the day. He's also checking in, he gets a catch up from the producers who have been there overnight. So they kind of catch him up on what he's missed over the past few hours, and what the morning reporters are doing. And then he starts looking at the day ahead to see, okay, there is an event at 9:30 that we would love to go to. It's not something that a reporter would cover, but we could send a photographer, he'd get some video and some sound, and producers could write it as a VOSAT. So that's what he's doing. I'm the next person that gets in. I get in at 7 a.m. And when I get in, I start looking at the bigger stories of the day to make sure that we, like, what are the reporters working on? What are their pitches for the day? Do we have all the major stories covered, or is there a story that we have to have someone on, even though they might be pitching other stories? Or maybe one reporter has two really, really good story ideas, and I know another reporter is struggling to come up with one. I can kind of like coordinate between them and pass that off. We have a 9 o'clock editorial meeting that I run, and we have different titles now, but because they're not called assignment editors right now, but the dayside assignment editor gets in at 9 o'clock. I run the meeting, and she runs the computer for the meeting and like takes notes on all the pitches, and then organizes the that file that I'm talking about, so that we know which reporters are on which stories. And then from there, I'll speak more about what she does than what I do, because she's the actual assignment editor. After that 9 a.m. meeting, she usually has a to-do list of a handful of things that came out of that meeting. Like maybe maybe we learned about a new VOSAT that we need to go get this afternoon, and she got to figure out who can do that. Maybe we want live pictures showing this major road that's going to be closed. She figures out who can do that. Maybe there was one pitch where somebody said, I got this tip about XYZ, but I don't know if it's true. If any, and maybe somebody says, can you help look into that? She'll do that. She'll make sure that the reporters have all the information that they need for their stories. Sometimes they need contact information for someone that they're not used to talking to, so she will hand that to them. She also coordinates with our affiliates. So we're an ABC station. If there's an ABC, so she tells what the other ABC stations, particularly in the Carolinas, what we're working on for that day. Because sometimes there's a story that we're doing that a station in Greensboro might be interested in, or vice versa. So she'll communicate with them. And then her ears are just always open. Her eyes, like she's always on the lookout for more news that comes in, because if she hears about breaking news or sees breaking news, that changes the whole plan. And then she's got to figure out, how do we actually go to that? Because we just made a plan and now it's got to change. So what do we need?
All right, well, first off, this is going to drive a lot of people crazy. I set 5 different alarms at not the times you think. So instead of 3 o'clock in the morning, it's 3:03. Instead of 3:15, I do 3:11. Do you do that? Okay, see, I'm glad that I'm not alone on this. Now, people who do not like odd numbers, I am the devil. But I like to do a variety of alarms just because you're petrified. Getting up so early in the morning, you don't want to miss your shift. So I'm a different breed. I'm not your typical meteorologist just because I do a lot of different things now with my new shift. So I'll get here at about 4:30 to start my day. Then we're going to be checking the traffic reports. So seeing what's going on there, we build all the graphics that we need to. And then it's an evolving door from 5 to 7 o'clock. so many things can happen. I could be just talking about, hey, it's a great day. What are you listening to on the radio? Yesterday, we had a 4-car accident that shut down Interstate 77 for 3 hours. A big accident. It was a fatal accident. So it's a lot of twists and turns. And then I'm going to change a different hat after that. Then I'll usually start preparing my weather-wise or weather IQ piece. Doing that, you got to keep up on the socials, posting everything that you need. And then I'm going to switch over to my weather hat. Then I'm going to go to our 9:30 meeting, let him know what's going on, get up at the forecast, make the graphics, and then we have a show from 11:30 to 12:30. You take a breather, you eat a salad, and then you're done for the day. So that's an example of rare case that you do so many different things, but news is always moving. It's always changing. And from day to day, you don't know what you're going to get, where it could be a calm traffic morning. It could be a sunny day, or you could have the double case scenario, the widespread rain, flash flooding that we're dealing with today, and these crazy accidents.
Typical day starts off with not knowing what time it's going to start. Sometimes I get a call at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and sometimes I don't get a call at all, and I just go in about 8:30. Once I get into the station, there is an editorial meeting, and in the editorial meeting, the stories are pitched. The stories for the day are pitched to the producers, and then there's a decision about what story we will cover that day. And so 50% of the time, I'm paired with a reporter, different ones every day. But I also go out alone and shoot stories. So I'll go out and I'll try to know as much as possible about the story so that we make sure that it's newsworthy. Then I get there and I'll assess the scene and just start shooting. And there are times when there's nothing going on and we just kind of wait for what we call spot news. Spot news is, if you're not familiar with that term, is breaking news. And that happens quite often also. So I'll shoot my story and I'll report back to the producers what I have, the facts of the story, and then we'll decide where it goes in the 90-minute newscast. The reporter, if I'm working with one, will write the story. I guess I forgot one important point. We have to do interviews about the story while we're on the scene. And it depends on the story. Sometimes there's no one there. We look for someone who, we always look for an eyewitness who might have seen what happened, or a professional who can give us some in-depth on how to deal with the tragedy of the story. But there's a deadline every day. Daily deadline for the 5 o'clock show is 4:30. The story has to be in by 4:30. So I'm editing for about an hour, cutting the story down so that it can fit into the format that that we use. Typical story, the length is about 1:15, which can be difficult to tell a full story in 1:15. But we have the kind of newscast where it moves, and so they want the stories and the newscast to move from one story to another. So usually about 1:15 is a story length, and then sometimes you can beg for a little more time if there's a real important point that you want to make in that story. 1:30. Series pieces are a little different. They can go 2 minutes, 3 minutes, but usually with every story that we do, there's a live shot involved, live on the scene. So everything is done from my vehicle. I have editing gear, my cameras, lights, everything. I'm completely mobile. So everything is done from my car. I feed the story in via the internet, and then do a live shot for the show. And by that time, it's probably about the end of the day.
The hiring process usually requires you to have a lengthy career history in different areas. Some producers come up through the producer ranks, they come in as producers. And then there's some people who come in as talent, like me. I was a reporter for many, many years, took some time off, started my own business, and then came back as an executive producer, which is a management role. So it just varies by person and what path people want to take. But I think what you can take away from that is that you can do whatever you want, really. I mean, it's really your choice, your career. You get to own how you want to move forward in your career, and you don't have to be boxed into one thing. So I think in news, the value is that you learn a lot of different things and a lot of different skills.
It all varies from station to station, group to group. You know what I mean? I can tell you kind of the ascension to a news director it's a bunch of different paths, and it wasn't like it was in my day 20 years ago where you became a producer, an executive producer, an assistant news director, and then a news director. Sometimes people are jumping from executive producer to news director. People are jumping from producer to news director. Oftentimes people thought you had to be in this market as assistant news director, then take a step back to be a news director in a smaller market. Those days are over. The sky's the limit. You know what I mean? There's no blueprint for it anymore. I can tell you, if you are aspiring to be a news director, you want to get some projects under your belt. You want to show some leadership skills. You can lead from any seat. You want to be able to show that you can manage people. You want to be able to show that you have empathy and can solve problems. And you got to have good news judgment in this business. You got to have the good news judgment and be known for someone that can remain calm in the midst of a crisis, right? Because sometimes there's stress, there's panic, but people follow your lead, right? So if you're not decisive and really take charge, then this might not be the job for you, and it's in the process, it's a lot of vetting, and the GM of a station is usually the person who makes that hire. So you want to make sure you're aligned with that person on your news philosophy and things like that. You usually have an assistant news director who works under you. You want to make sure that you're equally aligned and have the same news philosophy and are working towards the same goal.
There's the hiring process. It's similar, I think, probably to other news hiring processes. You got to put a reel together of some sort. It's not necessarily, depending on where you go, I don't think you necessarily need to be quite as hardcore about it as a reporter. I mean, you can, that's excellent. I think that would separate you from other people if you did that. But you definitely want to have samples of your work. I have a few A blocks from my last job. When I got hired here at WCNC, I sent an A block along that I directed. If you can get a director track, which is one where you overlay your audio of you talking during the show, in addition to it, that's even better. A lot of places ask for that, not all places, but that's definitely very helpful. So you want to get those, and then you've got an interview that you'll do with the production manager. Sometimes you'll meet other people, so you just want to make sure you're able to answer the questions well. Treat it as a conversation. Don't necessarily try to be too stiffed up about it, and ask good questions. One of the questions I always like to ask is, what do you like about this job? What do you not like? What are some of the challenges of this job? That sort of thing. I like to get to know, because it's not just an interview for them. If they want you, you also have to keep in mind, do you want this job? You've got to go into that with that mindset. So that's one of the things you want to do. So I gave a resume, highly recommend a cover letter. Those also help separate you. So yeah, it's pretty similar to other news roles, I would say.
Wow. Honestly, I've been in this business a long time. I've been at this station a long time. I've been here like almost 16 years now. So it's been a long time. It probably has changed a lot. But I think just like almost any industry, it's who you know in a way. You can, have your resume and you can send it in. But if you know people, it kind of helps, kind of get your foot in the door, or have a reputation of being, a good, trustworthy person. That kind of helps you get your foot in the door. But, having good interview skills, being able to present yourself well, really help you to get in. And like I said, I hate to say it, I think it takes a special person to be in news, because it's stressful. It's a lot, and it takes a special personality to so a lot of people have come in and they're just like, yeah, this isn't for me. And then there's people like me that come in and are like, okay, I got this. This is good. This is what we do. So.
The hiring process itself, I am always open to someone who's straight out of college, because again, I think it's like a great starting point. I want someone who is passionate about news. And that's where whenever I talk to them and vet them, that's important, because like we talked about, it is so demanding and the hours aren't always great. And you need to have someone who's willing to make those sacrifices because they see the reward at the end of the shift, or, at the end of the week, or whatever it might be, somebody who's willing to do it. So I'm happy to take a couple people out of college. I'm also, I also like to have experienced people on my team, people who've done a similar job in other markets, that kind of thing.
The hiring process for me, I had to get my 4-year degree. So I went to Florida State University. Oh, we won't talk about the football record this year. But I went to Florida State University, and for a broadcast meteorologist, I physically was part of what was called the 4 FSU weather show. So that's where we got our feet wet, kind of things like you probably would do at a college station, or even sometimes a high school TV station, that you get your feet wet. You're learning about things. You learn that you probably should not forget to put your microphone on, or else they're not going to hear you. It's the little mistakes that help you first prepare that resume reel. So I first sent that out. I got a TV jobs account. I highly recommend that for anyone's first trying to get that, because it's like $50 for a subscription. Let me restart that one in case you want to use that. I suggest people get a TV jobs account, because it's $50 for a subscription. And then you get to see all the jobs that are out there. You can kind of dream what you would like to do. And you have to have that solid reel, something that you're proud of. It's going to be something that you look back later and you're like, oh my gosh, I thought I was fantastic. But everyone's going to have kind of that unsure tone to their voice. Yeah. A few exceptions, the ones that make national news like right away. Yeah. But yeah, just have something that you feel confident at the moment, and just note that sending it out, don't fear rejection. It's a numbers game. Keep sending it out, and you're going to have to work in places that you don't see as favorable.
You have to have a good reel, and a good reel for me is a news reel, a good reel, not music videos or anything like that. You have to show that you have a good sense for news.
Executive producer should know.
Yeah. Anybody who's aspiring to be an executive producer needs to be able to lead people, because that is essentially what the job is. It's to be able to problem solve, to think quick on your feet, to really pay attention to the details. Those are the things that make a good executive producer, because essentially an executive producer is somebody who's overseeing a team and overseeing content. So this person is looking at a lot of different things, a lot of different details all the time. And you need to be able to juggle that, and also be a good leader, because you are leading your team and you want your team to grow and be successful.
Writing is key. You know what I mean? You got to learn how to write. You're either going to be writing as a producer or a reporter, or you're going to be copy editing. So writing is key. I'd say look for reps. You know, if you're a producer, look for reps to fill in as an executive producer. A closed mouth doesn't get fed, right? So if you don't say you have management aspirations, then might not necessarily look to you to be that person who's next in line to be a manager. You want to always volunteer and step up for big projects, right? If your station does a marathon, your station does debates, your station does a special, things like that. You always want to have your hand in the mix on those types of things. But you also want to show you're a good newsroom citizen, right? You're reliable, you're trustworthy, you're someone that can handle tasks, and you want to keep rising. In a newsroom, if you're a producer, there's certain shifts that are more attractive than others because it's a big show, right? A 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., a 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., a 6A, things like that. You want to be on those shows. You want to fight to be on those shows because it shows that you're a top dog producer there, right? And then you want to keep growing and get little tools in your toolbox that can help you grow. Projects are a big one. If there's an opening to handle the schedule or something like that, that can show you can kind of manage a task and put out fires and solve problems, things like that. And just you want to get in on the hiring process, and be able to kind of recruit and stuff like that. Recruiting is a big part of the job. Networking is key, expanding your network, getting people to vouch for you and making sure your name is good in the industry. All those things are important as well.
Absolutely. So we have reached our last question and our bonus question. So I just wanted to ask you, what is your favorite type of story?
My favorite type of story is as cliche as it sounds, is something that affects change, right? And it starts with somebody digging or somebody recognizing a problem and somebody being an advocate for a viewer to solve a problem or to change a law or something like that, because that's what the business is all about. It's cliche to say we're a voice for the voiceless, but we really are, and we have to be selective about the stories that we choose, because that is valuable ad space. People are asking every day, can you put me on TV? Can you air this story? Can you come to my event? So we are very particular about what we cover, and more importantly, what we don't cover, right? So you have to be selective about that, and you have to know that this is a great responsibility, and there are a lot of eyeballs on your newscast, and it would be a disservice to the viewer if you are not giving them information that can help their lives and improve it and go to bat for them when needed.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much, Richard, for sitting down with me and really bringing some insight to what exactly news directors do. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Right.
You need to know what looks good. You need to know what sounds good. I think you need to be able to learn technology. I don't think you need to be an expert on it. I think you just need to be able to pick things up quickly and adapt. So I think that's really what you want to know. And just you need to be able to trust your eyes and your ears, and you need to be able to kind of trust your inner voice. Like you need to know how to be able to communicate with people, because that's a huge part of this role, and communicate effectively. So those are definitely things you need to learn. As far as
hone your skills, we're all in college and we learn things, but take it a step further. There's so many resources out there now. You can watch YouTube, you can watch anything, learn different editing platforms. Like I originally came to the station knowing Final Cut Pro long ago. I learned Avid, which is what we use, but I also took it even further. I learned Adobe, on my own, things like that. And because, in this industry, and just, you can take those skills with you everywhere. Yeah. So learn your skills, hone your skills, practice, know that you're going to start off slow, and just be patient with yourself and just always keep learning.
Know that if they take the job, it will be an opportunity, and that they will be stretched, and that it'll be, stressful at times, because usually that new person that we're hiring ends up working weekends, right? And so aside from just like the schedule of what that means for their personal life, it also means that you're working with a much slimmer staff. So in fact, like you don't even have a manager there. So you need to be able to like hit and of course we train you. But after a few weeks of training, like you've got to hit the ground running, and know that like at a certain point, like, there's going to be a Saturday night where I'm the one running the assignment desk, and I'm the one making calls to like, do we send our reporter? Do we not send our reporter? Yeah. And there are a handful of other people working at that point. There's the reporter himself, the anchor, the producer, but it's the slim staff. So you're making a lot of decisions yourself. So just be ready to do that and be ready to learn along the way.
Wanting to become a meteorologist is that the resume tape is more important than ever, because before you could have a good resume tape, but you'd usually come into the news station, you'd be able to show off who you are as a person. You don't want to have that block. Like I'm 34 years old. I understand. I know I look 27, no big deal. But from my age range, when we're taking a selfie or I've been doing TikTok videos, when someone catches me, I turn bright middle school red because I'm embarrassed by it. But we have to realize that this is the new norm, talking through these rectangles. So when nowadays, have a solid resume tape, but when you're having the interview like via Zoom, just don't forget who you are. Don't be bogged down. Some people might feel more comfortable behind the screen. Some people might be vice versa. Just try to bring you, because that's number one. Be you. Love yourself. And that's how I think you can be the best success. Because if you're playing somebody that you're not being comfortable being, that's where you're going to fail.
So you have to have a good reel, a good personality, because you'll be tested a lot. It's an immature business, and it's a business full of egos. So you have to have a good attitude, not let minor things bug you. And you have to be able to work under pressure. You know, we can start there, but there, you know, it goes a lot deeper. You know, do you have a desire to do it? A lot of people get into the business, and when they realize the hours that they're working and the demand, they decide they don't want to do it anymore. It's not a glamorous business at all. It's a demanding job. It really is.